Hello and welcome to another Tuesday episode of Hornets Daily, your one stop shop for all things Charlotte Hornets. As always, represented today by the good people over at FanArc, and I'm your host, Vance Ballard, but you know by now you can call me VB. Want to thank everybody, as always, for joining us today, watching along with us out there. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about what's going on the show today. It's always nice to see your thoughts, interact with you guys a little bit down in the chat as we continue to grow and build this Hornets Daily family here on the program. Now, on the docket for today, we've got some things going on. It's a slower time of the year. We know it is the middle of August, but there are still a few things buzzing around in the Queen City worth talking about. The Hornets have made a new addition to their staff. They have added a coaching advisor. I'll talk about that on the program today. We know how active Charlotte has been this offseason, making additions, adding pieces here, adding pieces there. But we're going to talk today about what some writers are calling one of the more underrated of those additions, one of the more important pieces that the Hornets went out and got this summer. I'll discuss that today as well. Charles Lee went on WFNZ, gave an interview on the radio, tried to put to rest some of the uneasiness or lack of confidence that may be surrounding the center position. Charles Lee spoke with great confidence about his center rotation. I'll talk about that on the show today as well. And then we're going to get into the regular season a little bit. I know it's still a few months away. We've got some time to get there, but how important is a hot start going to be for the Hornets? We'll talk about the first 10 games specifically and how important it's going to be for the Hornets to come out hot in those first 10 games, put together some good performances in what are some favorable matchups. Again, we'll discuss that to wrap the show up today. But you know, we don't beat around the bush here on Hornets Daily. I like to dive headfirst into the program, and that's exactly what we're going to do here today. I mentioned the Hornets will have a new member of their staff come the regular season. Charlotte has hired Will Weaver as an advisor. He'll step into an advisory role to assist and support Charles Lee and the rest of his coaching staff any way that he can. This hire will help fill the gaps left by Chris Gent and Steve Clifford in their recent departures. The addition of Will Weaver will kind of fill that space and help maybe take up some of the workload that those guys did while they were here, taking some things off of Charles Lee's plate, helping him out again, as we mentioned. Now, Will Weaver, not the most popular name, not a super common, not a household name around the NBA by any means, but he does have a long coaching resume in both the college and professional ranks. In the NBA, he's made stops in Philly, 2 stops in Brooklyn, and as a coach with the Houston Rockets, all in the assistant coach or advisory role, much like he is with Charlotte now. His head coaching experience comes outside the NBA in the G League and overseas in Australia as well. Weaver was awarded the 2019 G League Coach of the Year as he was coaching the Brooklyn Nets affiliate throughout that season as well. Weaver was also in the running. He was named now. I guess it doesn't really matter that he didn't get the job, but he was named entitled the runner up for the Oklahoma City coaching job that was recently opened before Mark Dagnall filled that position. Weaver was in that hiring process. He was also mentioned, uh, interviewed for the Milwaukee Bucks job in 2023, so he does have some experience. He is known throughout league circles that people in the NBA do know who he is, and he's known as someone who can help with a rebuild, and he's a very good player developer, which we know is crucial for the Hornets right now, as development is kind of where all of their players, minus a couple of the veterans that they have added, development is the category that a lot of the Charlotte Hornets players would fit into. We know the young guys, the second year guys, whoever it may be, they need all the development they can get to continue to propel themselves forwards and become better NBA basketball players. So a guy like Will Weaver coming in with the reputation of being a talent development specialist is going to be important. It's going to really help Charles Lee and the rest of this coaching staff, the rest of this organization, as they continue to strive for the goal of future success and culture change that we know is coming here in Charlotte. Again, Weaver may not be a household name. He may not be the most well known uh, outside of the NBA circles, but if his track record as an assistant rings true, he should be very helpful to Charles Lee and the rest of this team going forward. He should fit nicely in there. And again, like I say, kind of fill those gaps left by Steve Clifford and Chris Gent when they departed from Charlotte recently to go to New York and Phoenix, respectively. Chris Gent will be with the Knicks. Steve Clifford heading to the Phoenix Suns, as we talked about last week. We know those guys are gone. Will Weaver is now come in to kind of help fill some of those spaces, fill that role. Now, again, we know all about the acquisitions, the additions, how busy the Hornets have been this offseason, adding extra pieces, adding some experience, bringing in some depth, which is going to be very important. As we know, depth is crucial for the Hornets with the injury bug that has tended to bite and take hold of this organization the last couple years, and specifically in the backcourt. That's where the injuries to Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball happened last year. We know all about the injury history with LaMelo Ball and his difficulty staying on the floor. So depth at that guard position was crucial this year, this offseason, and the Hornets went out and added exactly that. One of the more important pieces depth wise, according to Owen O'Connor over at Sports Illustrated, he believes that Spencer Dinwiddie is one of the more underrated additions that the Hornets made. While we know Dinwiddie wasn't a super flashy or the most attractive name on the market, the Hornets did sign him to a 1-year deal, and having a veteran at that spot could potentially play a crucial role for the Hornets going forward. Again, we know the injury history. If the bug bites again, having a proven NBA vet like Spencer Dinwiddie, you know what you get when he comes into the game. You know exactly what he's going to provide. There's no surprises, no question marks, no real, oh, can he develop into a backup guard? Can he develop into somebody who can play with in spite of injuries? In the case of injuries to another player, can Spencer Dinwiddie fill that role? We know all the answers to those questions. It is yes, that was kind of his job last year, not necessarily from an injury standpoint, but he was the backup point guard for Kyrie Irving last year, and Dinwiddie was able to average 11 points per game in 79 games played off the bench for Dallas last season. I say that 79 games played number with some emphasis because that is part of what's going to make him very important for this Hornets team this season. His availability is always top of the league. He's played 60 plus games in every season except for one since 2016, and that was when he was dealing with an ACL tear that held him under 60 games. But outside of that, each season since 2016, Dinwiddie has played in 60 plus games, something LaMelo's only been able to do one time in his entire career so far. So having a guy like that is going to be very important, just in case LaMelo is unable to go and stay healthy all year long. And even when he is healthy, just getting some rest, taking a blow on the bench, maybe having a night off, whatever that may be, Spencer Dinwiddie can fill that spot and there be really no drop off in production. Now, he's not going to come out and be a 20-point per game scorer. He's not going to come out and lead your team offensively in that regard, but he is a fantastic playmaker. He's a veteran with the ball in his hands. He makes smart decisions, and he doesn't turn the ball over. So Dinwiddie, he can facilitate. He's a true point guard, and he takes care of the ball better than most guys in the NBA right now. So that's going to be vital as well when he's on the floor. He's also much, much better than people give him credit for or think about when it comes to scoring at the rim. He's good at driving, and he has no problems dishing out to open shooters, finding guys in their spots, setting them up to take and make shots. Dinwiddie also doesn't get as much credit as he deserves at the free throw line, coming off of an 80% shooting clip last season. That's right around his career average as well. So he's very good when he gets to the line at making those shots. And so that's just another piece that Dinwiddie brings to the table to help and add some depth and extend the possibilities offensively and defensively for the Hornets when he is on the floor. Now, we know this was a little bit confusing of a signing. I'm sure you guys were like me when you saw it. You thought, that doesn't make a lot of sense, especially with all the other additions and the logjam, if you will, that was taking place in the guard room. But knowing the youth and injury history of the guards on this roster, it's very comforting now after having some time to sit on it and mull it over. It's very comforting to now know there is a proven veteran like Spencer Dinwiddie who can keep things on track, not really have a drop off in production when he's on the floor, keep the train going in the right direction for the Hornets if he is needed and has to be leaned on to play big minutes, important minutes, to even come off the bench and be a starter in the absence of Brandon Miller or LaMelo Ball. If one of those two is to go down, it's going to be very important to have a veteran, to have some depth off the bench like Spencer Dinwiddie at that guard position. So maybe Owen O'Connor is right. Maybe he is one of the more underrated additions for the Hornets that they have made so far this summer. Now, an addition that was not made, something we've talked about several times on the show. It's been a popular topic of discussion throughout the NBA, throughout the summer this offseason, is the lack of depth at the Hornets center position. But one person, if there's anybody out there who can stifle that, who can fix that issue, who can add some confidence to the fan base in the center position with that rotation, it is head coach Charles Lee. And that's exactly what he tried to do when he went and spoke with WFNZ a few days ago on a radio interview. He did his best to alleviate some of the concerns at the center position. He spoke with great confidence about his center rotation, saying they have, quote, a good balance and they can play a lot of different ways. Now, that you can take that to mean whatever you want. But for me, it means Lee's confidence should spill over into the fan base. If he's confident in the centers, then I can start to be as well. I think we all can as we watch this show and hear him talk and discuss a little bit more, especially going into the offseason, into the preseason, about the center position. We should all be able to feel a little bit more confident knowing that Charles Lee is excited as well. He says he's got a real plan with the centers. He didn't reveal exactly what that is, but he does seem confident in his plan and the way he's going to rotate the three big men of Moussa Diabate, Ryan Kalkbrenner, and Mason Plumlee in and out. Lee actually went on to compliment and spoke with great praise about the return of Mason Plumlee, something, if you're like me, that wasn't necessarily that exciting, even ventured on into the realm of confusing when the Hornets added the big man back to the roster for this season. But Charles Lee seems very confident in that, mentioning his adaptability as Plumlee has been a starter and a role player in the NBA, so he's familiar with playing both roles. He also, more importantly, Charles Lee said, brings a veteran presence and ability to show these young guys the right way to do things in the NBA, how to be a professional. Plumlee brings that to the table as well. Another veteran voice in the locker room, a very young locker room. So all of that veteran experience, all of that leadership that the Hornets can get is going to be necessary, something they can take forwards with them and get out of Mason Plumlee. If it is not necessarily minutes on the court, it can be leadership and that those types of things off the court in the locker room. Just that veteran presence can really help. Charles Lee is also not just very high on Mason Plumlee, but he's also extremely high on his young centers as well. He went on to call Moussa Diabate one of the team's, quote, great success stories. As we know, he came to Charlotte on a two-way contract, but has played his way into a standard NBA contract that will, without question, be guaranteed before the beginning of the season. As we know, Moose is on track right now to be the starting center. That's still up to Lee, as apparently he's got a plan that we may or may not know about going forward. He also compared Kalkbrenner to Brook Lopez, which is a high comparison, putting Kalkbrenner in high regards with a former NBA All-Star and NBA champion, one that Charles Lee happened to coach as he was part of that 2021 coaching staff when Milwaukee went on their championship run. So if anybody has any familiarity, if anyone understands a comparison to Brook Lopez, it would be Charles Lee after having watched him play for quite a while in Milwaukee, and now getting to see Kalkbrenner and what he brings to the table. That comparison, if anyone can make it again, it is Charles Lee. Now we do know we have to understand that coaches, yes, they have to coach speak when they sit down in these kind of interviews. They can't go on and validate all of our concerns as fans at the center position. Charles Lee's not going to sit there and bash the guys he has on his roster, but there's still plenty to take away from this that is actual real optimism. You can pick through some of the coach speak, you can pick through some of the just things Charles Lee has to say in a media interview, and you can find some real positivity and some real optimism that he actually has in regards to the center position going forwards. He's got a plan, and that plan is yet to be revealed. But if Charles Lee has it, I'm confident that the plan is going to work. As I've said many times, I'm all in on Charles Lee. I think he is the guy to lead this team forwards into the future for the long run. And if these young centers can help him do that, can be a part of that long-term plan, then I'm confident in his ability to develop and make them NBA basketball players as well. Now, one of the early tests for that plan that Charles Lee has at the center position is going to come a nice trial period in the first 10 games of the regular season. How important are those first 10 games going to be to the Hornets and their trajectory for the rest of the season? Can they come out hot? Can they start off with a good record in those first 10 games and propel themselves forwards for the rest of the season? That's going to be important. That's going to be something worth watching going into the regular season for sure. The first 4 games for the Charlotte Hornets are all very winnable, in my opinion. As we know, the Hornets open at home on October 22nd with the Brooklyn Nets before going to Philadelphia, Washington, and Miami for their next 3 games. So, again, those first 4 don't come against world beater teams. They're not really the upper echelon of the NBA. Some more kind of bottom of the barrel teams, if I'm being honest. In those first 4 games, they should be winnable. It would obviously, a trip to Philly is never an easy one, but that's a winnable game as they too are trying to figure out exactly what they have with all of their pieces. How healthy will Embiid be come the start of the regular season? If the Hornets can take advantage of those first 4 games, maybe come out 3-1, 4-0 out of those first 4, that'll propel themselves into what are their next 2 games, which are the first 2 real tests for the season. Games 5 and 6 will take place against Orlando and the Timberwolves. We know both of those teams are quality NBA teams. The Magic looking to continue their improvement and to make a name for themselves as a staple in the Eastern Conference. The Timberwolves, obviously, Anthony Edwards and company, we know all about them and how good they are. Those will be the first 2 tests as both the Timberwolves come to Charlotte for Game 6. After that, there's 3 more winnable games on the Hornets record where the Jazz and the Hornets will face off as Colin Sexton will play against his former team, followed by the Pelicans, and again, once again, a game with the Heat. Now, Game 10, that's going to probably be the most exciting one of the year to start things off for the Hornets as the Lakers come to Charlotte to visit the Hornets. Depending on rest, depending on workload, depending on if load management has kicked in or not yet that early in the season, will determine whether LeBron and Luka, or LeBron or Luka, or both of those guys are on the floor for the Lakers. But if they are, that should add some excitement, put some people in the building, and also increase the difficulty of the test that we'll be playing against the Lakers. Now, the schedule definitely toughens up after those first 10 games, which is why I'm putting emphasis on those first 10 and talking about how important they are. 2 games against the Bucks back to back after that. One of those games being an NBA Cup matchup. The defending champion Thunder, the Raptors, and Pacers are all also on the schedule in the month of November, so it definitely gets a little more difficult after those first 10 games, which is what makes those so important. Getting off to a hot start, taking advantage of those first 10 games could really propel the Hornets in the right direction, dictate how the rest of the season goes, kind of springboard them into the playoffs, if you will, as we know that is their goal and where they're trying to go. The Hornets want to build themselves into a playoff staple here in the Eastern Conference, and getting off to a hot start in this season, in their first 10 games, could really help and go a long way towards doing that, getting themselves in the right position this year. Now, if, like I said, health is going to be vital in this, and I know it's just the first 10 games, you don't want to have to worry about injuries. You don't want to have to get nervous about that before the month of November really gets going, really even kicks in. But it is the Charlotte Hornets. We do have to worry about that. Injuries are always looming in our thought process. We know what can happen and how a team can be derailed when stars go down. But again, as we've talked about today, there's been some depth added, some plans in place to kind of alleviate some of the hurt. No pun intended there. If LaMelo or Brandon Miller or somebody else goes down, there's plenty of depth that has been added, as we've talked about as well. Again, if the Hornets can stay healthy, they can take advantage of what is a not so difficult first 10 game stretch to start this season off. They could use that again as a springboard or project themselves into the playoffs and get themselves started going in the right way for the rest of the season and sneak into the playoffs, maybe even not sneak, but earn their way all the way into the playoffs, even or a play-in spot, whatever that may be. Those first 10 games, again, going to be crucial for the success of the entire season. If the Hornets come out and lay an egg in those first 10 games and don't start off with an above 500 record or even or close to it, right at 500, if they go 2-8 or something crazy like that, then that could also dictate a negative direction that the season is going to go. But if they come out 8-2, 6-4, even 5-5, and go right at 500 in those first 10 games, that will be a good start as long as we're seeing some positivity and some growth coming in the 5 wins and even the 5 losses, as long as it looks like the young guys are moving in the right direction and this team is not just stalling out in their first 10, then I think we can take some positivity and move forwards from that as well. Again, though, it's going to be imperative for the Hornets to start at least looking as if they're going in the right direction. Again, wins and losses are going to be important. That is what we play the game for. But development is going to be more crucial, especially in those first 10 games. I do, however, think the wins will stack up in those first 10 games. Again, not the most difficult of matchups. I think there's some favorable games, some winnable games, even on the road for the Hornets. So if they can start hot in their first 10, it will go, again, a very, very long ways towards the success of the rest of the season. That'll be something to keep an eye on. That'll be something to watch for as we continue to get closer to the regular season. We'll continue to talk about the importance of not just those first 10 games, but the next 10 and the 10 after that as well, and what Charles Lee and company are able to do going forward. But that is going to wrap up today's show. That's going to do it for us here on this lovely Tuesday episode of Hornets Daily. As always, thank you guys so much for watching along with us. Please hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about what we talked about here today. Let me know what you guys think about the new hire. Is that going to impact the coaching staff in any way at all, really? Should Charles Lee be as excited as he actually is about the center position, or is that all just coach speak? Let me know what you think down in the comments today, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow for a brand new episode.